What's happening? Welcome back to my channel. Welcome. I hope you like and subscribe to this channel. You know, live right or go to prison, man. This message is really centered towards the youth. It's for anyone. I mean, a young adult or an adult can take these words of wisdom, I hope, and apply them to your life. But it's really directed to the youth. So if you have a son or a daughter who's not living the right way, a teenager who's starting to misbehave or act out or show signs of any antisocial behavior or any addicted behavior, I really hope that they could take some of these words that I drop, and use them in their life in a beneficial way. You know, I don't make these videos on YouTube for money. I don't make a penny, and even if I reach the level where I can, it's something I'm not interested in. What I'm interested in is getting kids to live the right way, man. What I'm interested in is having the youth not experience the pain that I had to live in walking into prison at 24 years old and getting out at 42 years old. But even before that, my life was group homes, juvenile detention centers, rehabilitation hospitals, psychiatric hospitals, jails, and then prison for 17 years straight, and that was because of my own doing. And the youth, you guys know the difference between right or wrong. Nobody needs to explain the difference to you between right or wrong. You know this already. So when you get in trouble, don't point the finger at your parents and blame them. Don't point your finger at the cops that arrested you or the judge that sentenced you or the district attorney that prosecuted you, because you know the difference between right or wrong. I make these videos, as I said, not for any other reason that I love you. I mean, I really mean that from my heart and soul. I have a love for the youth, and I don't want them to experience what I experienced, and that's why I'm here, right? Let me listen. Let me tell you a little story, right? A man is drowning. A man is drowning. He's in the ocean. His boat capsized, and now he's drowning in the water. And a ship sees him, okay, and says, "Listen, here, grab onto this rope right here. Grab onto this rope and we'll pull you aboard." And the guy says, "Nah, I don't need to do that, man." He said, "My God's going to save me." And the ship tells him, "You better grab onto this rope because you're going to drown. You're going to go down." He says, "Don't worry about it. My God's going to save me." And the ship can't get him to go on board. So the ship leaves. Then a helicopter comes and a helicopter drops him a ladder, right? And they say, "Grab onto the ladder." He said, "I don't need to grab that ladder, man. My God's going to save me." They tell him, "You better grab this ladder. You're going to drown. Don't worry about it. My God's going to save me." The helicopter leaves. What do you think happened to that guy? That guy drowned. That guy drowned. He died. Then he gets up to God. He gets up in before God's face, and he says to God, "I believed in you. I trusted you. Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you help me?" And God says to him, "Did you see that ship? I sent that ship to you. Did you see that helicopter? I sent that helicopter to you. You didn't grab on, right?" I say that little story. You could call it a corny story, but what I'm telling you is that I'm here giving you a lifeline. I'm giving you a lifeline. You need to grab onto it because your life will be filled with pain and destruction. So I say the number one thing that you can do, is stay away from drugs. I don't care how many people told you that. 80, 90% of the people are in prison for drugs. Right? They're there because they were selling drugs, because they were using drugs, because they possessed drugs, because they did a robbery to get money to get drugs. They're hanging out with their friends who are doing drugs. They got caught with it, possession, right? You need to get away from the drug game. You really need to think about what's at stake before you get involved in any situation, right? There's a lot of peer pressure out there, right? And people think they hear this word peer pressure and they think that it's something that only affects kids, right? Adults succumb to peer pressure every day. I'll give you a perfect example of that, right? Let's say we're going to take it all the way to the top. Let's say the president of the United States he was against legalizing marijuana. He didn't want to legalize it. He thought it was a dangerous drug. He didn't think it would be good for society. He didn't think it would be a good message for the youth. So the bill comes before him. The Congress and the Senate draft the bill and they put it before the president. And the president says, Nah, yeah, I can't do that. I can't sign that bill. I don't think as a country we're ready for it yet, and I'm against that. I'm against it. They say, okay, another bill comes forward 6 months later. Mr. President, you really have to do this. You really no, the president says I'm against it. I'm against it, right? This is a group of his peers putting pressure on him, right? No, I'm against it. I'm against it. He said, we're going to lose a lot of money, Mr. President. We're going to lose billions of dollars. We can make billions of dollars, the federal government, if we just approve this. He says, no, nope, I'm standing on my ground. I'm standing on my morals. I'm not going to do it. And they come to him a third time and they say, Mr. President, you're going to lose re-election. The people want this. You're going to lose re-election if you don't sign this bill. And the president caves in and he signs the bill making the drug legal. He caved in to the peer pressure. A group of his peers put pressure on him and he caved in, right? Pressure comes from the outside, right? But principle is on the inside, right? You need to live by principle. No matter how many people put pressure on you, you need to live by principle. Okay. If you don't think that incarceration could happen to you, it could easily happen to you. I was from a middle class neighborhood. My father was a police officer. One of my grandfathers was a police commissioner. My grandmother had political connections, but I decided I was going to do things my way. Right. And these choices and decisions I made led to a terrible life of pain. So I'll tell you a little something about myself is when I was a young kid, when I was 9 years old, I was abused badly. I'm not going to get into the abuse, right? But in this story right now, but that abuse made me feel like I had to prove to the world I was a man. And it made me feel like I had to prove to myself I was a man. And the point that and that caused a lot of destruction, the feeling and need to have to prove myself. And so to all you out there that are watching this, even if you weren't abused, knock on wood, that hopefully that never happened to you, but there's plenty of you that still have the desire inside of themselves to feel like you have to prove yourself to other people. Right? You want to prove yourself to your circle of friends, and you have this circle of friends that are doing negative stuff, and you think you got to prove yourself. You don't have to. You don't have to, right? Get rid of that group of friends if they're doing something negative. As I told you all the time, birds of a feather flock together, right? If you want me to explain who you are, all I have to do is look at your group of friends, and that will tell me everything about you. That will tell me everything about you. You need to get with positive people who are focused on doing positive things. Your education is very important, right? You're a teenager right now. Forget everything else. Focus on your education. Because one of the things that education does is it's going to give you self-worth. It's going to make you feel good about yourself. So many kids are dropping out of high school, right? And turn into the street and turn into drugs. That doesn't make you feel good about yourself. You want to feel good about yourself, bang out that school, finish that school. Your education is really going to determine your status in society later on. Right? It's going to determine how well you do. Education isn't everything. I speak about this. I think that morals and values in a human being are even more important than education. But right now, as a teenager, you need to bang out that education. You need to finish high school so you can feel proud about yourself, so you can set some goals, so you can increase your status inside of society. There's so much available to you. There's Pell Grants available. There's Perkin loans. There's ROTC. There's AmeriCorps. There's so much available for you to take advantage of, even if you're in a disadvantaged position. I don't care what position you're in. You could tell me that you're from the projects, that you're a black kid from the projects, and your mother's a crackhead, and your father has no job, or you're on welfare, or you could tell me you're a white kid in that same position, that your mom's a crackhead or on welfare or a prostitute, or you have no money, you got 4 brothers and sisters. I don't care what your situation is, because the key to success is going to be your decision making, right? Everybody could cast blame. Everybody could cast blame, right? That's an easy thing to do. As I told you, there was a pastor that was very interested in what made some people successful and what made other people fail in life. So he interviewed both people. He interviewed people at the bottom of the barrel. And they were like, I was molested as a kid. My dad was a drug addict. And my mother, was on welfare. And, I never had any motivation. They had all these excuses for being in the bottom of the barrel. And then he talked to the successful people, to the very successful people, and said, listen, how did you get in this position? Because these people at the bottom of the barrel went through a lot. And the successful people said, we went through a lot too. I came from a single family household. I had a mother who was an alcoholic, right? He said, but what he determined at the end of it is that people at the bottom of the barrel, people who were failing, they casted blame on everything else, and they took no personal responsibility. He found that people at the bottom of the barrel focused on the past, while successful people focused on the future. And that's what you need to do, is focus on the future. You need to live right. You need to live morally. You need to live properly, because you're going to pay the price. You don't know what I went through in those institutions. The pain that I went through in the mental institutions, because they thought I was crazy for acting like such a fool. Being tied down to beds, needles of medication being pumped in me, going into prison and living with animals that scream all night long, filthy, dirty, screaming, noise, constant abusive correctional officers, fights, people getting stabbed, people getting set on fire, people getting their faces ripped open. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm giving you the reality of what you'll be exposed to if you go in the prison system. And that all stems from you choosing not to live the right way. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you've been living incorrectly, because you can still change. You can still change. If anyone has ever gone to the circus, or anyone has ever seen a circus, right? When they bring the elephants into the circus, what they do is they have the biggest elephant in the front. They have a smaller elephant behind him. They have a smaller one behind him, with the baby elephant all the way in the back, right? And that's how they bring them into the circus, right? So they don't stampede. And they also have them chained together. They have their ankles chained together, right? This way they could, go in order. And they pull that little elephant along in the back. So the question is, why doesn't the big elephant in the front just break the chain? I mean, he's 15,000 pounds. He could turn over a tractor trailer if he wants. Why doesn't he break that little chain around his ankle? The reason why he doesn't break that chain is because when he came into the circus, he was the baby elephant in the back. And he was chained to a bigger elephant who was pulling him along. And through the years, he got bigger and bigger, and he moved up in line until he was the big elephant in the front. And when he was in the big elephant in the front, he was strong enough to break the chain. But you know what? His will was gone. They broke him down. That elephant accepted that this was going to be his life, that he was going to stay chained up for the rest of his life. Even though he was strong enough to break the chain, his will was gone. And I'm here to tell you that you could break the chain of negativity anytime you like. You don't have to be pulled along from the people that were pulling you along. Right? You can change anytime you want to change. You can do this. I spoke to you about stimulus and response. Stimulus and response, when your brain is stimulated, there's going to be a response, right? If you do drugs and you're trying to stay clean and you walk into a room and all your boys are getting high, your brain is going to be stimulated. That's the first thing that happens. Whoa, there's my drug of choice. There's the weed. There's the coke. There's the alcohol. Your brain gets stimulated. There's going to be a response after that. Your response may be to pick it up and get high. Your response may be to walk away. Your response, right? I don't know what your response is going to be, but between your brain being stimulated and response, there's a space there. You have to realize that space exists. That's the space where you make your choices and decisions. That's the space of free will. That's the space that will decide your future and your destiny. All the decisions you make in that space between stimulus and response are very important. And I'm telling you, kids, you can't, as I said in the beginning of the video, you can't blame anybody else. You can't blame anybody else. Life is difficult and the situation changes in front of you all the time. Life, you're going to be constantly hit by storms, right? You know the difference between an eagle and a chicken in a storm, right? When a storm hits, a chicken looks for cover. Right? That's what he does. I hope you like my little stories, right? Because they're true and there's meaning behind them. When a storm hits, a chicken looks for cover. He looks to go under a shed. He looks to go under his hen house. He looks to take cover under a bush or a tree. That's what a chicken does. And the storm comes down and beats him up. The rain and the wind and everything. That's what people say. You're a chicken. You're getting beat up by the storm. But an eagle, when the storm comes, he senses when the storm comes, he flies right into the storm. He flies above the storm clouds, and an eagle lets the storm take place under his feet. And then he comes back down once things are calm. My point is be an eagle. Don't be a fucking chicken. Don't hide from the problems of the world. Fly right into them. Accept them as a challenge. Take them. Go after things. Successful people love problems. When a problem comes your way, go after it, man. I don't want to see you guys live in the prison system, man. It is no way to live. I'm telling you, it is a life of such sick pain. You don't want to do that. There are alternatives. There's people that love you. There's people that care about you, right? You could change your life around. You don't have to live negatively. You don't have to live on drugs. You don't have to follow your friends, right? I'm going to give you a little biblical story, even though I'm not a Bible preacher. It's the moral of the story. The fact that God is in the story doesn't have anything to do with it. There were three people in the Bible, three young men. Their names were Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego. Those were they were three Jewish men in the Bible. Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, and they were traveling through the plains, right? And they get taken by a man named Nicodemus, right? And Nicodemus says to him, "You're gonna anytime I play music." He says, anytime I play music, you're going to bow down and worship my God. He made some golden images. He says, and all the people in the city are going to bow down and worship my God, right? And I'm sorry, his name was Nebuchadnezzar. That was his name, not Nicodemus. His name was Nebuchadnezzar. And he says, anytime I play the music, you're going to bow down and worship these golden images. And Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego said, they're not doing that. They're not doing that because they have a God. And the first of their commandments is, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That's their first commandments. And then their second commandment is, thou shalt make no graven images, right? So they're not bowing down to the image and they're not bowing down to another God. And when the music plays, they refuse to bow down. And so the king summons them into his chambers and he says, come into the chambers. And he basically says, I'm ad-libbing right now. These aren't his exact words. He basically says to them, listen, there must be some misunderstanding because everybody in this city bows down to these golden images. These are the gods right here. And when I play the music, well, you're going to bow down. He said, so I'm going to give you another opportunity. I'm going to send you back out there. I'm going to play the music again. And then you guys are going to bow down. And they said, Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego said, that's not even necessary. He says, if you don't do that, I'm going to throw you into a furnace of fire. Right? They said, we're not doing that. Right? And then the story goes that he cast Radshak, Meshach, and Abednego into the fire, that he threw them into the fire, and they get saved. Okay? And that make a long story short, Radshak and Abednego get saved. And my point is that those three men had something that I mentioned earlier in the story. They had principle. They stood on principle, right? They had made a decision beforehand that they will not crack to the pressure. They will not cave into the pressure of if a whole city is doing something. If all your friends are doing something, that's my point to that story. If all your friends are doing something and that something is negative, that something is destructive, it doesn't matter if the whole city is doing it. You can stand on principle. You can do the right thing and you can live the right way. I'm going to get ready to come to a close. I want to say this. My life was filled with so much pain because I thought I was the toughest kid in the world. Right? I love to fight. I love to do drugs. I love to have 100 girlfriends. I wanted to be the man, right? I was a lost kid. I didn't set any goals. I didn't know what was important, right? And I did, but I kind of abandoned it for my own reasons. And you may have your own reasons for abandoning being a good person to live in a negative way, right? And it involves a lot of pain, a lot of tears. I was killing my mother, killing my family. My grandparents saw me living this destructive way, man, and they wanted to save me so bad. But we make our own choices and decisions. I can't say it enough. Just set goals. It's not too late to change, man. If you don't know even how to go about it, if you think, oh, I can't tell one of my friends that I can't hang out with him no more because he's going to think I'm a sucker or he's going to think I'm a punk, all you got to do is just tell him, yo, listen, I'm busy. Sorry, I can't come right now. I got something I got to take care of, and focus on some positive things. There's so many people that will help you if you just look for it. You could be whatever you want to be. There's no meaning to life. One person his meaning could be to be a doctor, a cop. Another person, his meaning could be to be a garbage man, which is a great job. Work 4 days a week, off by 2 in the afternoon, making 100 grand a year, close to it. Sick leave, paid vacation, retirement. You could look at someone who's a garbage man and say, that guy's just a garbage man. But how do you know that wasn't his meaning? How do you know that guy doesn't wake up every day and he's like, I love my job. My father was a garbage man. My grandfather was a garbage man. I got sick leave, paid vacation, retirement. I'm cleaning up the community. I feel like I'm doing good. Right? So that may be his meaning. I don't know what your meaning is. I don't know, but you have to look for it yourself. As I said, what you have to do is find something that you love so much. Find something that you love so much that you would do it for free, and then find a way to get paid for it. Find something you love so much that you would do it for free, and then find a way to get paid for it. You could knock this country as much as you want. No country is perfect. We make a lot of mistakes in a lot of areas. But you could do whatever the hell you want here, as long as you set your mind to it. You go after it. It takes discipline. That's all it takes. I tell people, you could believe whatever you want to be. I say, what do you want to be? I want to be a fireman. Do you believe you could be a fireman? Yes, I believe I could be a fireman. Well, your belief is only 50%. Your belief is not going to get you there. Commitment is what's going to get you there. Commitment is the horse that pulls the cart, right? You need to commit yourself to doing something good. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm preaching to you. I'm really not preaching to you. I'm talking to you. You don't want to be locked in a prison cell crying with the threat of violence around you, the threat of death around you, the crush, your soul and your spirit being crushed by correctional officers who think you're a piece of shit, who think you're a piece of garbage, and you're told what you can eat, what you can wear, where you can stand. They tell you to get naked and bend over and spread your ass open. You want to subject yourself to that? Your parents have to come visit you when you're locked up. And let me tell you something, when you get in trouble, right? The trouble may be a little at first. You get out of trouble. You think you're going to get out of trouble again. But all of a sudden, something serious happens. And you're in front of the judge and nobody can help you anymore. And the lawyer wants 100,000 to get you 10 years. Otherwise, you're going to do 25. Right? The system was filled with so many young kids when I was in there. I was heartbroken. 18-year-old kids that received 15 years, 20 years, life in prison, and the reality didn't even hit them yet. I felt like I had to prove myself to the world. It was a mistake, man. All you got to do is take care of yourself. That's what I'm asking you to do. I'm going to come to a close, man. I'm sorry if I ran my mouth too much. But please, make your family proud. Make it so you could look in the mirror and feel proud about yourself. It's never too late. Never too late. Love you guys. Bye.